So we can do this here. And that way if anyone wants to follow along with what I'm doing on my screen, because I'm going to be using this handy little website tool called Incarnate. That's really great for map making. But anyways, for anyone that's watching the VOD, you know me, I'm Leshok, the GM of T-Force RPG, and we're doing a little casual world building workshop today, where we're just basically going to, me and a few other GMs or some other players here, and prospective GMs, and we're going to talk about world building, and in the process, we'll make one as we go, because what better way to talk about it than to practice it? So, a real tool like I was talking about that I recommend doing because one of the prime things I think that you need for building a world is a map. Anyone disagree with me?
Yes.
Of course you do. So joining us joining us today, we've got Asmodai, we've got Azifer, Divine Sparky, Casey Stranger, and Tasty Music. So when you're building your own world, I personally like to start with making a map. But in doing so, you're kind of going to decide what sort of world are you willing to build. So let's as a group here, as the world that we're going to build together, are we aiming for something that's fantasy, science fiction, modern, occult? Like, what type of world do we want to build today?
Gothic horror.
Gothic?
Semi-future.
When you say occult, what do you mean exactly?
I guess a cult would typically fall into like the genre that like Call of Cthulhu would fall into.
Gothic horror.
Typically, that means that your average person doesn't have things like powers, but there are scary, dangerous, powerful, evil things lurking out there that are either well-known or not well-known, and they kind of want to do all of the horrible things in the world.
Okay, I got you. Near future cyberpunk horror.
Near future cyberpunk horror. Okay, so Call of Cyber Cthulhu. Got it. All right, we're going to design a semi-futuristic Call of Cyber Cthulhu world. So now, do we want this? So the first one I'm going to do is if you go to the website incarnate.com, which is INKARNATE.com, you can.
It's a pun because it's ink.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for interrupting me for the obvious pun.
You're welcome.
So when you start out with a map of this, it's literally just nothing but water, and it's really simple tools for carving out like shaping land in circles, stuff like that. So when we're looking at this world, so let's get somebody else's input on this. Sparky, do you picture this like, do you think a world with multiple continents? Or are we just focused on one single area? Like, if we're dealing with a futuristic world where there are horrific, horrible, evil things that, want to eat you in your sleep, where do you, how are you picturing a world like that? Because this is where you want to start to take the shape of things.
That's a good question, because it could be like horrible, like if like it's one giant world and everyone's just running around getting eaten, but it could also be horrible if it's separate little islands.
Okay, no, I like that. Isolated communities, everyone's afraid, poor communication.
That would work.
All right, so then we'll go ahead here, and I'm just going to start, using this tool here just to doodle the shape of a few random islands. Because now apparently I have this horrible habit of every time I design places,
Drawing a penis.
They either are shaped phallically or resemble some form of a Pokemon. So you're just watching me.
There's like 1,000 Pokemon. It's not that hard.
Including one that's just a circle.
Yes,
You can't get it. You can't escape that problem.
Voltorb.
That's true. I could just, or everyone could just claim it's a Ditto, whatever. So.
Dildo? Why are you drawing a dildo?
No, that's definitely a victory bell.
So okay.
Drowsy also. Isn't
so because a lot about the shape of the world can really inform what's going on there, because like, oh, if we've got multiple small, so how many, we're going to separate this into a couple different islands. So our world is set in an area of multiple islands, and there's, so
So
how
are
many?
we? Quick question.
Mhm.
Are you building a world or a primary area of focus right now?
Well, that's a good question, because right now, if we're thinking, we can either build the entire world or we can focus on one area and zoom out as we go. I'm thinking right now, what I'm looking at is a chain of islands, whether that is the entire world, the entire known world, or just where the game would focus, can be very open for interpretation and change. So, and yes, Leshok is streaming this. Anyways, so the thing that we're going to look at here is how many islands, how many locations when when thinking these are the questions you want to start asking yourself. If they're all divided, because within this horror-esque world, what is the primary danger? Do we have scary elder gods? Do we have giant sea monsters? Uh, do we have
Dildo Islands.
dildo islands?
Well, we're a bit in the future, right?
Yes, we're
So-
futuristic.
So there's going to be some level of technology here. So, traveling is not going to be as dangerous, per se.
Well, I think like a neat progression for something like this would be, in the early stages of the game, maybe travel isn't very dangerous, and then when things ramp up, it becomes dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. Like my thoughts on gothic horror, Lovecraftian or otherwise, is the danger is unknown at the beginning. So travel could be easy to start off with, and then as we uncover the dark hidden secrets, of the world, then it would become more dangerous.
It's also possible maybe to have almost have travel banned maybe by like some of these elder gods, or if we're gonna go with gods. So maybe that might be a good way to have some.
That's actually a good point about if travel's restricted or not. So I think then we just got a few islands out here. We can start taking a look at what is our big scary. Is it elder gods? Is it aliens? Is it undead? Is it ghosts? Is it like a secret society, like a shadow government controlling things? What do we feel like? Do we feel like sticking with like an elder gods, forgotten, ancient, powerful things that are
Dark
perhaps,
secret cults and whatnot.
yeah, or because this is futuristic, perhaps this is almost like a Ghost in the Shell type thing. Like if maybe this is literally a
Puppet Master deal.
like a literal cyber Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
So
That could be
some of that.
interesting. And going along with that, I'll let Casey just one sec, because I had this idea. Is what if there is a like not fully totalitarian, but like a semi-totalitarian government, like a Singapore, or like a Ghost in the Shell-esque Japan? Because
Okay.
that could also limit travel.
Okay. Well, because we can also throw, if we're looking at limiting travel, there's all sorts of different reasons one can. And if we want a limited travel area, I think that islands are a great way to do it. Because traveling between them is very much controlled by having access to boats. Or flight in this manner. But anyways, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves there. We've got these islands. We have to figure out our danger next. Because if we're doing this horror thing and it's in the future, what is it that is potentially out to get the players?
Well, and I have a thought that was about to be my suggestion. What if, and this goes hand in hand with how the travel is going to happen, like what if there were underwater tunnels that connected the islands that were very open access at the beginning of the game, but the danger is actually some sort of monster, maybe they're deep sea mining or something, and they release it, and it's this,
The dwarves
these
dug too
creatures
deep.
coming up from the deeps, as it were.
Okay, no, that's a great idea. Maybe, yeah, all of the travel isn't done specifically over land. Maybe there's done by the sea, and we can demonstrate that with drawing some using tools. And let's say that these here are. Oh, that's right. It wants to. We can show these areas where tunnels can be connecting the various islands to
A quick
each
question
other.
for the group.
Yeah.
So we've got these islands here, and we've kind of been talking about this shadow government that's like, semi-totalitarian. Do you guys think the government will be on only one island and kind of control that, or is it going to be in control of all these islands and limiting your access between all of them?
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be one government.
Well, so I'm wondering, like, that's what my question earlier about the scale of this particular map is, and what we're dealing with. Because what we're talking about now, like with, like this could be like a patient zero type situation where this is a small beginning area of effect. So we could be talking like a Hawaiian Islands size thing, like maybe an archipelago, something along that line, or it could be much larger and more spread out. I personally think in what we're talking about, it would be a little bit more interesting to have a more sort of close focused claustrophobic environment where you don't have the outside connections to multiple governments or whatnot. Like to me, it would build the stress of the world if you're very much limited and focused on one setting and not having the availability of other options. But that's just my opinion.
Well,
I agree with that. Well, go ahead, Leshok.
oh, I was just going to say, I feel like having established the ideas and we're talking about governments, because currently we just have islands, we have the travel amongst them being either A, overseas, or B, through underwater tunnels, because there's a lot of digging. So maybe we're looking at because it's a futuristic, kind of a flooded water world type deal, very limited land spaces, right? But I think the thought we need to come to, if our big, scary evil is these perhaps slumbering underwater monstrosity creatures, another race, have you, who knows about them?
I think at the beginning,
no
one. Or like,
we're not even talking about the players. We're talking about in the world. We are talking about. So, are there cults? Is it perhaps something that the government is trying to control? Because in the world, we're building a world where there is this horror kind of overwhelmed setting. Something out there typically knows about what it is. Like in Call of Cthulhu, you have these cults, you have ancient like dug up lore. If these things have been here, there's some clue, even if it's buried way in the past, of their existence.
I like the idea, and maybe people can spitball off this, but I like the idea of, if we're like just branching off of the semi-totalitarian government deal, if maybe there are cults who got into the worship of these things as a different venue, or a venue for expression of discontent, or wanting to change the world, and it's going to end up happening in a bad way, like it's a poor decision.
Okay, so maybe what it's suggesting with that is we have a totalitarian government that's overlooking the world. Whether it's one or many, but maybe they have false information about what these things are, and they're trying to dig them up because they view it as more of a messiah type deal rather than a harbinger of death and doom.
We could just lift, like from Star Wars, where some high-ranking people in the government know about the real deal of the Elder Gods, but the rest is oblivious.
Okay, so
about this Messiah thing.
Yeah, so like an Emperor and Vader type deal.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, these, like, again, because the idea is, it's also because for people that'll be not participating in this conversation later, we want to kind of almost make this like, I guess you could say almost like a checklist of things that for people to ask themselves questions on when making their worlds. And I think the first is designing what genre the world is. What is your central source of conflict? Like, is there, and Are there powers? Is there magic? Is there psychic abilities? There's the list can go on and on, but we kind of want to start with the basic inception. And as you can see, the idea just can continue to grow from there.
So I think the current struggles that we're talking about right now are the struggle against the totalitarianism of the government, the struggle against making bad decisions in terms of trying to find freedom, and then eventually these dark powers that are being turned to because of the state of the world.
Mm. I think it's great to be great if like a GM could play those spheres of influence off of each other, and player characters can basically be like, yeah, I work for the government, or yeah, I just want freedom, or yeah, I work for a cult.
Okay.
So that offers great diversity, I think. If we can...
So here we have factions, right? And when you start building a world, you inevitably come into this like one idea creates 12 more. So what we'll start doing is this a way, because to make this a collaborative, almost storytelling effort in the way of making the world. So we'll just start, each of us will start contributing one little piece to it and growing it from there. So, and we'll just go down here. So Tasty, all right? Look, we have these multiple islands. Is there one centralized government watching over them, or are these multiple government factions that are sharing an area?
I think I like the idea of kind of one overarching government controlling a chunk of the islands, and then maybe a few of them have either resisted or are tributaries to the realm or whatever this government is. It doesn't have complete control over this area, but it's kind of working towards that.
Okay, so that they are so almost to the extent that perhaps one or two of the islands are not officially under their thumb, but
exactly.
They don't have the true power to resist or change anything, and it's like an inevitability.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well then what do we want to call our little empire here? A name, and a name can be very informative of what it is, or it can just be something kind of cool, or we can later find reasons for the name.
Google.
Oh yes, beautiful. The Great Google Empire.
The People's Republic of Google.
The Great.
So the government has to lie about what it's actually.
So here we have the Great Google Empire, which is perfectly fitting in this futuristic sort of world.
Well, I think maybe, a lot of dystopian futures involve giant corporations, so maybe that would work.
Well, yeah, I mean, Google, if we look at this as almost in a reflection of our world, right? Google becomes more and more ingrained in everything you do. It will start to control cars. It controls your phone everywhere. Along the way, eventually, it just becomes the government, and
it knows your
technically
search
that
history.
would be Alphabet because Google is now only the search engine.
Well, you know what I mean. Whatever, simplicity's sake.
Google knows your search history. Be afraid.
So okay, then we'll go KC. What sort of climate are these islands existing in? Are these tropical islands? Is this kind of a like frozen or tundra on top? Are we looking at heavy forests or deserts? If we've already discussed the idea of digging downward, are the surfaces of these islands really that inhabited? Or do you think that they're kind of like a barren place or just used for growing resources?
Well, so I think, in order to call it an empire, like the land area has to be somewhat extensive. So I'm thinking that, these land masses are probably pretty big, actually. So I think there would be some room to have different climates for a few of them.
Okay.
So I'm thinking maybe especially the one maybe up at the top left would be sort of like Iceland kind of thing. And maybe the one at the bottom right is more of like a tropical island, and just sort of shades of difference between those.
Okay. So basically, kind of fill out in the same sort of manner of our own hemispheres.
Yeah, something like that. So just as you go from the bottom right to the top left, it gets colder and colder. I'm thinking like all of them can have volcanoes, actually.
Oh, so
Um,
a volcano on every island.
Not necessarily. Well, I mean, actually, that kind of makes some sense.
I mean,
I don't know that there necessarily have to be on everyone. Maybe all the big ones.
Yeah, I think it might be cool to have a volcano in the middle of like the small three islands. You know that it's kind of the runoff is what has created those.
Like a hot spot, like
Exactly.
where Hawaii
yeah,
is.
I kind of think the idea that all of these land masses, like perhaps this was like a water world type deal where the whole thing got flooded, and these volcanoes are what has created these land masses over time.
Although I'm thinking the three little ones that you're right over can be maybe different from the other ones. Like,
Bigger,
okay.
smaller.
Yeah, I see you put one like right in the middle there. That's kind of looks like it's in water.
It could be.
Yeah,
I mean,
it could be an underwater
well,
volcano.
Yeah, all right.
if I make it bigger, like this, then suddenly it changes entirely what the shape of those islands are.
Yeah, right. Well, I was thinking of
Like,
those
which you'll
as being,
see,
like,
'cause
you
you're
know,
on a
a coral
15-second
island or
delay.
something, but they
Oh.
don't have to be at all. However you guys want to do it.
So that could be like a mega super volcano, because why not? Who doesn't like a mega super volcano
Oh,
in their
snap.
world?
Oh my god.
So then we can start with the tools that are on here, we can start painting the islands in slightly different ways. So maybe around, I don't know, we've got some areas that are like kind of swampy on this southeast island, perhaps? You know, or we've got tundra up in the far north. Like there's just Incarnate is really great for designing your map without having to have great artistic skills, because I don't have them. So we can start like kind of painting this in here, and that this is like kind of the world. Then at that point, I kind of dig it. I dig the idea of this water world in this futuristic place where majority of them are living either, and they're starting to dig under because there's limited space.
So I have a question for everyone. Like how much space of wilderness is there in the world?
Well, again, we can keep this to keep it more collaborative and keep everyone involved. We can just kind of like go through the line here. So, Sparky, how many cities do you see on each of these islands? Are like each island is now that the way that KC had viewed it that these are huge land masses. These are almost like continents, really big islands. So, how well populated do you see these? Like, how many cities do you imagine being out there?
And for the record, like my sense of scale on this is like at minimum, maybe the top left one is like the size of Australia.
Okay. Well,
That's huge.
I think that
You can
like,
scale it down a little bit from that if you want.
I think basically the four corners I think would probably be, we can almost represent them as countries. Maybe have that middle three islands be like almost like I don't know, like a zone of, for lack of a better word, like evil. And maybe have like the freedom fighters or something, some kind of, you know, protectorate, or maybe some country that broke off right there in the middle. Okay. So I would say you can have populations towards the cities in those four countries, and have the middle part not as populated, and have no population near the gigantic volcano, because it doesn't really seem habitable.
Oh, and clarification, I agree with Asmo. Top left, Greenland.
Okay. So then how many, let's say for example, the southwest most continent, how many major cities would you picture there? And like if these islands are all roughly like Greenland size, then there's room for a couple major cities.
So like 3 to 4, would you say?
Okay. Yeah, so we can start.
Maybe, have one on like each coast, one in the center, and
like
maybe somewhere like along the way or something like that.
maybe like an average of 3 to 4 between the islands, but have like the more populated ones have maybe like the most populated one have like 6 or something, and then like the least populated one have maybe 2 or even 1 city.
Yeah, I think like the top right would probably be the best for the most cities, and I would always put them, close to these travel points, because they want to be able to be close to, where people are coming in.
Okay. So the top right continent, or island rather, is probably where the capital is, if we're informing it as being the largest and most populated. You know, um, and we're just kind of keeping places not too close to the volcanoes here. So okay, we've got the great Google Empire on this vastly water world with great mega volcanoes. Are these volcanoes related at all to the ancient terrible beings that dwell beneath the
100%
sea?
Yes.
Yeah,
Of
maybe
course.
100% yes.
maybe they're the result of it.
Okay, so then let's get into the nature of these beings. Are they literally just underwater, or are they like subterranean? Are they like dwelling in the magma of the earth and that is how the relation comes with the volcanoes? How deep do they go? Or is this like a giant world worm or something like that? Azifer, tell us, what are these things?
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just that's a hard one.
Well,
Maybe
just
to key in the conversation a bit, how much do you think these like great old ones are completely supernatural, or one of the ideas we threw out before was like kind of playing with like the ghost in the shell, where everything is basically man-made. So like, is this just like some crazy virus that has gone wrong, and is everything like completely human-made at this, or like are these great old ones supernatural, or maybe a combination of the two?
like
Or primal.
Well, I definitely think they have a connection to humans as the creatures as just what you call it, natural apocalypses is kind of not very interactive.
Okay, so connection with humans. Now, is this then? Let's go this one scale at a time. Is this one giant like ancient god creature, or an entire civilization and things, or like a group pantheon, or?
Well, I like pantheons, like
Okay.
several different.
Okay, so there are several different powerful beings. Now, if we're tying into this kind of futuristic aspect, do they have a tie-in with technology as well as the people? Have they perhaps, were awoken by a slumber and discovered like an automated drill or probe or something, and were able to use that new technology in a way? Are they infiltrating the world's technology?
Yeah, well, I think they whispered in the right places to make development or progress of the humankind go in the wrong directions. As you mentioned, with the drills in the ground hitting the magma, maybe they know how to trigger the volcano, the apocalypse,
Okay.
so to speak, and flood the world, and they know how to do it, and they made humans do it.
Okay.
And they did it, well, they could have done it as a group, collaborated on doing it,
Okay.
and then after the apocalypse they split up to fight among themselves, for example.
Okay, so what we have then is a pantheon of these elder beings that are, whatever powers and such they have, manipulating people into progressing humanity, to progressing its technology and culture in this way to facilitate releasing them, because they're apparently they're able to reach out from wherever they are.
Perhaps they can do it through their cults, and that's a way you can tie in the cults to even more
Well, yeah, because
future endeavors.
whoever because the cult to be whoever they're kind of whispering to the strongest. Yeah. Okay. So I like it. I dig it. So, what would be the? Go ahead.
How guys? How much do you think these old ones would be like integrated into technology? Like, would they be able to be like this computer virus working its way through like computers and whatnot? Because if we're imagining a cyberpunk world, technology is going to be extremely present.
Well, as Ver said, they guided us to develop technology.
Oh, I
And
know that they
so-
got us to develop the technology, but like, are they in the computers or are they working from outside of it? You
Well-
know,
Maybe
like,
one of them.
like, you know,
The
directly interfacing inside.
The good thing about the Pantheon is that you can do several different. You can have one virus god, so to speak. You can have one, I don't know, human greed. You can have one more integrated into, I don't know, the more like drills, the what do you call it, the mechanical, and you can have one, I don't know, connected to the, for example, if we
Volcanoes.
tie magic into the world.
No, I think it also would help to have one that's kind of like the apex of what they aspire to, or like a just basically just full machine or something like that.
Yeah, he's for example the one in the middle volcano, and we have one god for each volcano.
Okay, so we've got 6 of them in the largest and mightiest. They dwell beneath these volcanoes, way deep down, and their attempts to get out are what pushes the volcanoes out further and further.
I like the thought of that. It's also cool because it creates an interesting dynamic between the Pantheon itself, as we have, you know, we have the strongest god in the biggest volcano, but then there's the god that is in the capital and has the access to the most people.
So, okay, well then we can start labeling what, you know, we'll tangent right off of that. So, in the volcano, we can just kind of label this as, you know, the apex god. Do we have a name? Do we have a name for him? Asmo, what's a name for our apex god?
I don't know. I'm bad at names.
Well, just make
Asmo.
make one up. The,
Tim.
Tim, yes.
Yeah, Tim.
Tim,
Mikey Kim.
Tim the Dark Volcano. Awesome.
So
Whatever.
they
It doesn't
call
matter.
the-
It doesn't matter. Like sometimes a great way in your worlds to kind of throw people off is with simplistic names. Everyone wants these big, impressive things. You know,
Yeah,
like
you-
the Helzahoff and
Yes,
Yeah,
you need a little showmanship. You can't just be called Tim.
But you can. You absolutely can. It doesn't matter what their name is. In fact, sometimes having a less impressive name, it's like that almost cliche at this point of a huge guy named Tiny. Sometimes the fact that the name doesn't relay how impressive they are actually makes it better when you find out the truth.
And you can have Tim the Dark Volcano. He's confident in himself. He doesn't need a long name. And then you have the one with the superiority complex or struggling with self-confidence, and he needs to be called Hellfire Super Computer.
Hellfire
something.
Super.
Hellfire Supercomputer?
See,
Oh
that's
my
the name of the
god!
boss. Hellfire Supercomputer.
Yeah. It's like a
Okay, and so-
By the way,
It
can we spell Tim in all caps?
yes,
Like you're
I,
screaming it?
None of them. Are
Tim.
yeah, Tim. Tim can be in all caps, totally. Tim, the Dark Volcano. And then we have Hellfire Supercomputer. He's in the least populated area, has the least followers, and it wants to be the biggest deal. Now,
He
if
secretly covets
if
Tim.
if Tim, you know, perhaps even if we felt like it, we could joke to say that like TIM stands for Technology Innovative Machine or whatever,
my
you
God.
know? It's just an example. But like if he's the great one, the apex of what all the others want to be, then perhaps the other 5 are all like one abstract concept of him. So Hellfire Supercomputer. What is Hellfire Supercomputer's stick? He is the dark, evil god creature thing of what? And the better that
Nerd
the,
rage.
No, it's
We
no,
gotta
it's
be, we gotta be
be-
careful of this because we are trying to build a world here, and as funny as it is to joke around, you know, like I think we do have to stay kind of on point.
Well,
just
that-
otherwise it'll fall apart a little bit.
I would say that depends entirely on how the serious, like how you can be scary and silly. Look at Evil Dead. But this is just a practice example, you know, and we can get a little silly here because this is the thought process. You can later come back to a name and be like, oh, I don't actually like that. But in this dark, futuristic like world here, yeah, Tim the Dark Volcano, it just throws people off.
Although, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Hellfire Super, like, so he is obviously this large dark one. I feel like if the fact that we're in a futuristic world here, that all of these dark gods, because they have shaped mankind to be this way, should tie in to that sort of advancement. So, like, instead of just like,
Well, I mean, possibly, but it also could be in order to destroy or reshape the world, forcing humans to use up all the resources and then die out.
well, I mean, one way or other, the narrative that we've currently established is that, and Casey, I just hear a lot of clicking, and that's weird.
Oh, sorry.
Is the narrative that we kind of have going on is that they have been shaping the development of mankind to help release them, and that is required, and they've shaped them to develop the technology to delve deeper and access things. So maybe part of their of what they are. So maybe, if we're jokingly referring to him as Hellfire Supercomputer, whatever, like, perhaps his domain and the things that he is associated with is, maybe it's even almost like a basic element warped, like the concept of being of like lightning, but then that transforms into literally electricity. You see what I'm saying? Like, we can take a primordial concept and advance it into this future manner.
I think we should, if we're going to do that, we should be careful with electricity, because if we're working in a cyberpunk world, that gives it a lot of power in it, per se.
Well, yes, but of course it has a lot of power. These all have a lot of power. It doesn't mean it has control over all of it, but maybe that is what it can influence.
So when I hear Hellfire Supercomputer, I think of like a giant monster breathed in like magma and probably have like a brain basically that is a supercomputer. So he's kind of like a plotter. So maybe that's why he's so envious of Tim, because he wants the spotlight, but he doesn't. He isn't in that power yet, but he's trying to get there. So basically, he is the processor of the group. He's able to strategize and work behind the shadows.
Okay, so I like that concept that he's like the brain. So when you picture him, he's this large magma creature with this huge pulsing crazy brain or whatever. So maybe maybe information and technology and secrets are his thing. Maybe he's been able to be one of the people that's helped influence everything because he knows how everything works. And the crowd goes quiet.
Oh no! I mean,
I think
that was
that's,
sort of a stop.
That's
well,
awesome.
I think that's kind of, it's cool, but I want to. I just feel like we're giving Hellfire Supercomputer, like, we've established before that he's the weakest of these guys, and if we're working in a cyberpunk world, where information is power, like how much ability are we going to give him?
Again, we can constantly adapt as we go. And that's one of the things in the world that you'll find out. You may come up with an idea at one moment that you think is great, and then later realize it doesn't fit in the scheme of where you're attempting to eventually evolve things from. Now, and then if you find yourself with an idea that's conflicting with yourself, then another one you have, then you later compare them. Now, saying that these are dark, powerful, terrible beings doesn't mean they have omnipotent control over everything. If they were completely all-powerful, then
they wouldn't need the cults.
They wouldn't need people to basically kind of like dig them out, for lack of better words. So but maybe the secrets of technology is what he has. Maybe he has the knowledge of it, but it doesn't mean he can control it. And maybe that's part of his envious thing, is that he knows all of these things, but he doesn't actually, there's nothing he can do with them besides telling other people, granting that knowledge to others.
And does he really want to do that, being the weakest person among them?
Right, so he's very careful in parts of two, but because of the grand scheme of all of the others to dig them out, he is working along with that. And because of his knowledge, he's able to help influence the humans into the development of their technology. That doesn't mean he controls it. But then again, when you have these things, you can kind of set limitations to what they do and don't do. So to say that yeah, he is of information technology, even in a cyberpunk world, doesn't make him all powerful if he's not actually controlling all of it.
And a lot of the interesting things about a pantheon is the conflicts between the different gods, where Hellfire Super. We have established that Tim is the closest thing to the omnipotent god here. So if Hellfire Supercomputer has all this information, he can be real about it. I don't know, feelings, understanding humans. He knows technology, he knows information, but he doesn't know humans as the complex beings they are with feelings and emotions and all that.
And
that's
maybe
his
as a result
downfall.
of that, he can't influence, like, if these are Call of Cthulhu things that, draw people to insanity and whatnot. So maybe Hellfire Supercomputer can't influence people to do things as much, but he has, like, this wealth of secrets. So, like, for him to, like, truly, like, push people in a direction, he has to work through one of the other gods, and that's why he's the smaller one. Even though he has all this information, he has to constantly go through them to, like, really, really push people in a certain direction.
Yeah, I like this.
Exactly. Yeah, beautiful. Because again, scoping the power thing. So we've got our big Overwatch of all, whose powers perhaps indescribable. We've got the one now who knows everything. So do we need to look at another one, like who is the really good with people? Who is the manipulator of emotions and thoughts?
I'd say the one with the most population on his island.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, of the one that is manipulating people's thoughts, dreams, wants, desires, a name that we can come with this.
Oh, by the way, can I jump in here one
Yeah.
thing real quick? Just because we have a couple kind of goofy names to start, and I do like, as much as, we're obviously allowed to do that, I kind of like what Tasty was saying about, like, what kind of mood are we trying to build, and names are going to play into that. So my thought is, what if all of these beings did have, like terrifying, ineffable, true names, but they sort of, like, don't want everybody to take them seriously. They want people to underestimate them, and so they reveal to their followers these goofy names instead.
Oh my god! I just had a genius idea. And
Yeah, I was thinking that.
we may be able to edit some of the names, but what
Yeah.
if they all have like super cheesy hacker aliases type names?
Leadspeak.
That's amazing.
I mean,
God.
well, again, cause these can also be like translations of
Well, yeah,
whatever. So, like, when they say their name, what we hear is this. And again, most people don't know these things exist, so it's easy to almost write off as a joke. Like, oh yes, there's some great Hellfire supercomputer controlling all of us. Ha 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 ha. And then when they become confronted with it, there's this vast, huge, terrible being that contains so much knowledge. There is and as far as the mood goes, it can be campy or and you can always change these things. Nothing is written in stone. Because even when you're playing in your own world, if you suddenly realize if you've kind of quote unquote written yourself into a corner, just be like, hey guys, this didn't actually work, and you can talk to your gaming group, and majority of them, while they may give you shit, will be like, yeah, whatever, we'll keep playing, this is cool.
I think one of the names should just be code, like either code or just like a bunch of zeros and ones.
110101101.
And I think one of the names has to be the blue screen of death.
Oh,
Oh, that's
Jesus.
amazing.
Someone has to be called the blue screen of death, and they just go around killing humans or something like that.
Well, I was thinking the one in the capital or the most populated area could be Google, as in put in a hyphen or something. It could be the inspiration to the Google name.
Well,
It turns out he was the mastermind behind Google this whole time.
That would make sense too. If he's the one who's best with people, and their empire
Yeah.
is now what's in control of this place.
I'm thinking, if I could just interject,
sure.
I'm thinking that maybe Hellfire would, as far as party interaction, maybe since he's youngest and has the most amount of knowledge, he would be the one who would try to come off as like a benevolent hacker to the party.
Well, I mean, most of them aren't interacting directly with the party. so say like we're currently just like in the building of the world stage. So like
Yeah.
Hellfire Supercomputer, because he can't manipulate or doesn't understand people, the kind of concept we have for him is that his anger and jealousy is that he has all this knowledge, but he can't do a lot with it because he needs other people to help influence.
Okay, so here's my quick
So,
thought.
and before we start going backwards and reviewing things, like, it's okay if we have an imperfect idea, but if we keep going back and revising, we'll never actually get forward, and I don't have all evening.
So here's my thought about Google as the main name, and why I'm not quite on board with it. Is if we posited earlier, and this was just me, so maybe people don't agree, but the elder gods, the reason people are working towards them or moving to try and access them, albeit wrongly, is that they are living in this oppressive regime, right? The Google Empire. So maybe the main god in the branch is Yahoo. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the elder gods are directly opposed, at least in my vision, and I could be wrong, to the empire itself.
Well, I think that they more or less like what I have heard from here is that they have influenced the creation of the empire and the creation of all this technology as a means to making these people dig them out. So like and as earlier said, that there's like one or two people at the top of the empire that know a bit more about these, and
That's fair.
and are like their brainwashed servants. They're Darth Sidious and they're Darth Vader. So one of the great ways about this is like, and with this again with the silly names and stuff, is it makes it easier for them to almost quote unquote hide in plain sight. So if you imagine the one that is supposed to be, and the more that I think about this, the more I like it, of this Google, because the more that everyone is on board.
I hate that name. I get it. But
Good.
Oh my God.
You should hate the name of Google.
Anyways, I'll add an extra L. Anyways, but like the concept is that as everyone keeps using it more, like Google, as Google began to infiltrate more people's lives and minds, it was him gaining more power of influence over their every actions by tracking their location, tracking what type of searches they normally do. Like
Goddamn Google TV.
Google is of people, like people's behaviors, their patterns. It's the manipulator, the whisperer.
Maybe he actually understands human.
Making composite
Yes.
images of your friends to put in ads.
Yes, exactly. That is Google.
Google the Deceiver. I like that.
Nobody notices ads anymore, so it just says join Google.
Yeah, Google the Deceiver. And no one pays attention to the ads. They're just there.
No,
But it's
you
him
guys heard about
whispering.
that, though, right?
Yeah, the composite ads with your friends' pictures. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome. All right, so we've got our super technology brain. We've got our whisperer and deceiver. What else do we need here? Do we need something for exploiting, do we need greed? Or does that fall into that? Do we need war? Do we need
Capitalism.
capitalism?
capitalism.
Okay, capitalism.
Donald Trump,
Oh,
the Dark Elder one.
oh God. Anyways.
Trump card.
Well, we don't necessarily have to have all these gods made up right
Yeah,
away.
that's true.
Right. So, because we can move on to another aspect of it because we're in time. So we have the Great Empire. We have these volcanoes that beneath all of them dwell these elder, powerful beings that have been shaping mankind. So let's take another jump into a completely different direction here. Other factions besides the Empire. Is there a religion? Freedom fighters? Rebels?
Yeah, I think you can have basically like freedom fighter, almost hacker guys who know the truth, but everyone kind of sees them as crazy.
Okay, so there is like a small secret society of freedom fighters that know the truth and are trying to prevent it. Perhaps, they could be known, if we're just kind of thinking there, by the symbol to each other is
Actually,
that
I'm gonna
they...
head out.
Okay, we'll see you, man. I know you have to leave
Anonymous.
early. We're almost done. Anonymous or the
Nah.
white hats.
I like white rabbits.
This is so.
I like White Rabbits too. Then they can
Let's
use a
get
bunch of
Matrix
Alice in
again.
Wonderland for.
Yes.
Oh, beautiful,
Yes,
For
that's
the-
why I call it white
beautiful.
rabbits.
Okay, yeah, and then they can use Alice in Wonderland characters as like code names for each other.
Yes.
So the White Rabbits in the well, all around and try and disperse and information, fight the power. Your typical rebel faction there. How do they know about these? Is this like a cult member gone rogue? Is it through accident of study, or
I think it's like accident of study.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Armitage in Dunwich Horror, if any of you have actually read Lovecraft.
Yep.
okay? So they just stumbled upon the truth, more or less.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that they're just so deep into, I don't know, what we could say, like the modern internet or something like that. They're just so deep into that, they live in it, that they discovered this, and they kind of put up tests for other people to see if they're worthy of knowing.
Yeah,
I
'cause-
think.
Go ahead, Tasty.
Well, with I'm just wondering how much we're going to be drawing from Cthulhu when making this world, because one of the ideas behind that is the more you know, the more insane you are. And so this could be a reason why people don't necessarily listen to these hackers outright, because to truly interface with this, with kind of the maybe like the dark web, if we decide to build that into a thing. There's the normal surface web that everyone has access to, and there's the dark web underneath. And that's kind of where the old ones have a little bit more power per se. And but within Cthulhu, you have the more you know about what's truly going on, the more just straight up insane you get. And so I don't know how much we're going to have that influence us when we have with our hackers. 'Cause
So,
I think
well,
we're building them up as
I don't want to cut off, but when you're talking about that, and I realize how we're doing cyberpunk too. In cyberpunk, the more cybernetically augmented you get, the more you lose touch with humanity.
Yeah.
So I think that gives us a good idea, a good other ballpark to look off of between balancing the knowledge to madness and teched out to becoming like a cyborg. So with these guys, and so let's say the brief moment here, I could definitely see the idea of them more they know going insane. But if they are getting more cybernetically teched out, does that make them easier for the dark gods to control?
I think
Yeah,
so.
see, I would worry about that.
See,
I agree with that though, because I think maybe you have to get more cybernetically augmented in order to penetrate the deeper levels of this internet that has been created. But doing so, you open yourself up more and more to the Dark One's influence.
and so what they do is they basically and part of their madness comes from pretty much almost literally cybernetically and programmingly creating a secondary persona inside of themselves, and that's why they have these code names, so that they almost it's almost like a fucking Yu-Gi-Oh where he can switch between Yugi
jeez.
and but instead
Yami
it's
Yugi?
but
Oh,
yeah, but instead it's their White Rabbit persona, so that way they're protecting themselves, like they can so it's a bit of madness and it's a bit of loss in humanity all rolled up into one. Because, like they said, if they want to dive deeper, they have to get more enhanced. But doing so puts them at risk, and making it, and sharing two personalities in one brain makes them go a little crazy.
Yeah,
And
that's also
I'm
good.
thinking. I'm sorry.
That's also just on a very micro scale. That's also a good way to open up spies or informants in for GMs and stuff like that. So that's
And
that
if
could work.
you were making a custom system out of this, a mechanic where players have a GM controlled other persona sometimes, that's just fun.
That would be
we-
literally terrible.
And we could connect it into it depends if we want to have the players inside this White Rabbit faction, but they could be controlled by another Elder God variant, just like nobody is really good in this world.
Well, I mean, it also creates a lot of sense of paranoia. So maybe with all of maybe there's like a government, the Google Empire has like a required chip that goes installed in you like at birth. So they feed you news and updates, but maybe there's literally like government issued like checks or whatever
Personality
where they
training
trainings.
software.
Yes, well, also like every so often it just like locks. Like there's a curfew. Well, curfew, they send everyone home through cybernetic control and make them
Oh
go
my
to sleep.
God.
That's cool. Can we play in this world?
I mean, there's
If you're the GM,
there's
This is like Dark City now.
I mean, there's just yeah. So you see, like,
yo, I
it-
like that movie.
yeah, I did too actually. So yeah, there's a lot to play with in that when you start getting into the double influence between the dark gods and the empire. Man, so are there? So I'm sorry. Whenever you have these crazy technology things, there has to be another faction that is like super anti-technology somewhere that are like all being naturalistic and getting no implants or anything. Am I the only one thinking that?
No. That was my thought originally. Was that, and my thought would that be the direct antagonists to the government and old gods would do that. But now that you say like they're learning more, they're sort of like risking that. That's kind of
Well-
a cool idea.
And they're
So-
living the
Wh-
only place where they can live, given the dominance of Google, which is on the island of Tim the Dark Volcano.
Oh my God, they're living right under him. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this organization, maybe even then still, the hippies, the large chunk of the group, are the resistance or the white rabbits. But then there's like the upper tier, more willing to risk it all, are the ones that actually get cybernetically enhanced and dive in deeper. But it's not all of them that do that. It's like their top agents, the ones that are willing to risk the most.
Yeah, you could have like kind of almost like a Luddite
Well, is anyone-
revival or something.
It's like, has anyone seen Equilibrium?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how like the
that's a good
guy
one.
at the top of the resistance of all the people that wanted to feel took the medicine so he wouldn't feel so he could make the difficult decisions. It's that fits into the imagery I'm seeing here. So we have our counter organization, the White Rabbits, and there are various different ways that they're going against the Google Empire. Is there a large spread religion, or it's just Google is everything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
The only thing I could think of would be maybe worshiping like the first kind of automated programs that were made, perhaps. You know, like we worship like
Oh my
not
God.
worshiping Google, but like
So
I mean, it's just Turing testing us.
it's an interesting idea. My thought would be like in order to keep these gods or whatever these supernatural powers hidden and like very fringe knowledge and whatnot, like because we are like even though they're controlling technology, it's a supernatural feel. So my thought would be that it's all treated as like myth and folklore, and no one really believes in it, but like the information exists. So kind of like a direct correlation to like a very cynical view of our own world.
No, I mean, so
That would be my idea.
no, and I'm completely okay with that. But what my immediate next thought was, why? And this is because this will be wrapping up on the realm of an hour now. What sealed them? Why are they trapped? Did something seal them, or is this just like a circumstance of their being?
I've had a great idea with this from the beginning, so if you guys don't mind. So originally, when they were helping with technology to, release themselves, they created these drills, which could be like around the volcanoes, which were kind of going into where they were sealed. And so through some acts, like, I don't know, some adventuring party beforehand, like either rewrote the programs to the drills and, kind of cause that to be what's like trapping them in there in the volcanoes, but it also is what lets these old ones have their interface into technology.
So someone found out about them, shut them down, and that's why they're cut off and forgotten and like slowly influencing. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah.
Okay, I like it.
Well, I
And
was
it's just-
thinking that
Go
they
ahead.
were born from the first technology. Like Tim is the first one, let's say, and he was born from, let's say, fire, like Prometheus. He either was the one that gave humans fire, or he was born from the act of an extension of humans, the tools, the technology, and somewhere along the line, somewhere along there, they went into maybe hibernation. Maybe they just decided to wait until humans were ready. They realized that they needed to wait for humans to be ready to let them out.
No, I like that because that would also explain Hellfire supercomputer being like the youngest and the weakest because he's the most recently born, and he's born entirely, essentially, of the internet of computers.
And the dark volcano would maybe refer to fire, just like the first time some human lit a fire for the purpose of using it.
The first innovation. I like it. So that the way they weren't sealed down originally, but they started to take form because of the shape of the world.
They had to wait for progression to get to a point that could unlock them.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, maybe one stands for gunpowder, one's like metalwork and such.
Oh,
You know, as we progress with technology like this, that's like, and again, Tim stands for fire. That's like the first time that humans had their influence over nature, and that's why he's the strongest, because he's the eldest.
And then Google is the inception of language.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah.
So then I think we should have one that's like, and this could go towards making travel dangerous. One who is like the innovation of travel, of ease of movement.
boats,
So,
planes.
wheel, yeah, exactly. The wheel was my first thought for that first innovation that he was born out of.
Oh,
I like it.
I dig that a lot. And so okay, so then we can even like look in order. So we've got Tim, who was born from fire, Google, who was born from voice, and then we have whoever would be for travel, and then we still have two. What about tools, like machinery?
Like maybe metalwork for one, and then like gunpowder for another.
Well, we have the Industrial Revolution happened,
Yeah.
and that was a big shift in humanity.
Well, yeah, but I think that would be like an increase in power of the thing that was created when a human first took a rock and put an edge on it.
Well, that would be the second eldest.
Yeah.
That would make sense, more sense, because they would necessarily come before travel.
Okay, so then we have one more. There's still one more than this because I feel like gunpowder and metal are just still like in that tool.
Tools.
Um,
So wait, we have tools, language,
Oh,
information
society.
technology,
Society.
but that was Google. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. That's so. There's,
No, but
I think you need to have you always need to have a god in a pantheon who controls life and death. So
that seems like if you have
well, in a traditional pantheon, yes.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily traditional enough, so I don't know if we need to have it.
So what
I think
else?
it's a good
say-
idea, but the idea with this is that I think with technology, how would we have life or death? be
What about
technology?
agriculture?
well,
Ooh,
yeah.
agriculture. It's like the mastery of man over nature. That is like their shtick. So we've got, the inception of fire, which is like the spark of all ideas. We've got the inception of language. We've got the inception of tools. Just very, like man working things with hand. The inception of travel, mastery over, wherever you're going, and the exception of like agriculture, domestication of animals. And the inception of essentially advanced information technology in the form of computers and the internet.
yeah, but how would you have the inception of people? I mean,
Well, each god is like supposed to represent like how humans are advancing with technology. So I don't know if there'd necessarily be a god of people.
Yeah.
It's more of how
yeah,
people are interacting with the world.
but these are monumental figures who want to try to control humanity. So they're gonna probably want to say that they created us.
Well, no,
Well,
I don't think
they're
so
lying.
at all. I don't think so at all.
They
I
could be
think that
lying, but
these are great beings that were created by innovations.
they're kind of
and
abstracts.
They're not the gods of people. They're not the pit. They're not like a creator figure or like a death figure. They're more giant beings that were created through man's progress and using that
And-
progress wrongly
Okay.
or however.
And through that you have, like, for example, Tim and the other gods have a deep-seated hatred for humans because they are essentially they are powerful beings, but they were created by humans, and by that extension, humans are superior in some ways, and such they want to control humans because, yeah, that power. They want power over humans because humans created them.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, they want. No, I think that's a great way to look at it because above all else, they want mastery of their own selves because there's essentially progress unchecked. And
I just had an idea for the travel.
Mhm.
I guess you want to call it domain. You can make it just a god of just static or like white noise sound that you can just basically disappear and appear in other places. Call it maybe static or something like that.
The road.
I mean, there's so many different names that come up with them all, but the fact that we've nailed it down to the pure theme of this pantheon is that they are created from human innovation, and now they feel that they need to move past the humans. They need to, because they are bigger than that, but they have to be freed in order to do so.
So I think
Yeah,
one thing that this has kind of solidified, at least to me, is the real struggle or the real sort of conflict in this world, and that is really progress, technological progress, innovative progress, actually being bad, and so like the whatever the good side, quote unquote good side, the people fighting against these gods, like there are some who use the weapons of innovation and progress to learn more about it and indirectly, accidentally, whatever, feed these gods. And then there are like the true sort of fighters who are, keeping life as simple as possible. The Luddites that we posited earlier.
It's just it's really, if there's a metaphor for the world, it's the concept of whether man's inventions improve his life or make him more dependent upon it. Like, if anything, it's like that example of becoming enslaved by your own technology and your own progress rather than being liberated by it.
Right.
And through that struggle, you have the same parallel with the humans, because humans created the internet, but does the internet
Controls
control the humans?
Mm-hmm.
So you get the parallel to the elder gods who are, well, you could have the moral of the story, where they were all humans
Beautiful.
in the end or something.
No, I love it, and I think that's great. Like, so we just built this in an hour's time of this, and the next step would be like going in and you start creating individual people that are in charge of factions and everything. You start coming up with who the ruler of Google Empire, because now you have all of this information to inform that. You can just keep going further and further. So maybe I think that this, that we got a good hour in here, and so I'm going to pull this to a stop. I'm going to save this, and if we can all get back together at some point, perhaps on the line, we can go a step further into another world building workshop where we start getting into the people and the politics and everything from there. So I want to thank everyone for coming and participating. I hope this was helpful, entertaining, and informative, for just examples of building a world, like in this little workshop, as we start to build this fucked up technological Cthulian future world.
The world of Tim.
The world of Tim. So
This is Tim's world, and we're all just living in it.
Tim's world, apocalypse, excellent. All right, well, I'm gonna sign off this stream here. So everyone, have a good night.
Oh, good night.